Hi, shalom everyone. Very interesting. Today in the headlines in the Jewish Chronicle, Sunday Telegraph and many other newspapers worldwide actually state something phenomenal. I read the headline of the Jewish Chronicle that Christopher Columbus was a secret Jew, which is claimed by scientists. This is a article, I'll just quote, I think Jane Prinsley actually writes this actually in the Jewish Chronicle, and it's very much featured in the Sunday Telegraph and the other different outlets of media across the world, and especially online also, which is, I think that some people might not be surprised about it, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, on Chabad website, I was reading an article, doing some research on this just today, in of itself, with regards to the Spanish Inquisition, and they do say that maybe Christopher Columbus had some sort of connection with the Jewish community at that stage in time. We'll come into that. In fact, Christopher Columbus himself was born, I believe, around the year 1451 and passed away in the 20th of May in the English year 1506. Naturally, he would have been about 54, 55 years of age at the time of passing. So I'll quote what the article says in today's Jewish Chronicle. I think it's just come out today. Obviously, naturally, it wouldn't be inside the actual newspaper from last Thursday, Friday when it was published, because now we are on Sunday at the moment. It says, I quote, "The famous 15th century explorer Christopher Columbus was a Sephardic Jew." Naturally, we all know that Sephardi means Spain in English. That's the terminology. "From Western Europe, according to DNA experts who have concluded an investigation into the centuries-old mystery." So many people might have thought that possibly he was throughout. Now, it's actually interesting. I am writing and trying to form a rabbinic encyclopedia of the rabbis from the last 700-800 years, including till modern day, of any rabbis that had passed away, and trying to piece a jigsaw together. I've covered probably about 450 videos of different rabbis, especially from the Northern African and Spanish and those vicinities, those countries over here. So a lot of this information doesn't now surprise me whatsoever from what I've researched on over the last few years. Researchers claim that analysis of the remains of Columbus and his, let's say, illegitimate son, Hernando Colon, showed Jewish origin, something that may have been concealed at the times as the Jews were being persecuted in Spain and Europe. I believe the last wave of Jews leaving the Spanish Spain at that point in time was in 1492, if I'm not mistaken. I'll try and get the exact date in of itself, but no, it was on 1492. I can't remember the exact date of it. I would leave you all to research it. So I'll continue quoting the article. "The traditional theory that Columbus came from Genoa in Italy has often been questioned. Other theories have ranged from him being a Spanish Jew or Basque, Greek, Portuguese, British." Naturally, Spanish, Portuguese, many of the people moved to Portugal after the Inquisition in Spain, and there was problems also in Portugal, as very much historians will record in the chronicles. Continue. Researchers conducted a 22-year investigation headed up by forensic expert Miguel Llorente. I hope I pronounced the name right. Scientists tested samples of remains buried in Seville Cathedral, naturally in Spain, believed to be the last resting place of Columbus, and compared these with those of known descendants. Their dramatic findings were announced in a documentary titled Columbus DNA, The True Origin, on Spain's national broadcast TVE on Saturday, naturally on the Jewish Shabbat, coinciding with Spain's National Day. Now, the Sunday Telegraph, well, I believe that might have been the source, actually reported both in the Y chromosome and in the mitochondrial chromosome of Hernando, there are traits compatible with Jewish origins. According to Antonio Llorente, professor of legal and forensic medicine at the University of Granada, Professor Llorente said that the DNA showed a Western Mediterranean origin. Francis Albardana, a historian who was, I'm continuing the article over here, who has written about Columbus' origins in Catalan-speaking eastern Spain, claimed that being Jewish and from Genoa was effectively impossible during the period. Jews could only spend 3 days at a time in Genoa, by law at that time, said Albardana. Albardana also claimed, I'm quoting the article, that Columbus was from a family of Jewish silk spinners from the Valencia region. There were around 200,000 Jews living in Spain in Columbus's time. In the Italian peninsula, it is estimated that there were only between 10 to 15,000 at that point in time, and that makes sense. Many would move on to Italy afterwards from the research I've done over the last few years. There was a much larger Jewish population in Sicily of around 40,000, but we should remember that Sicily in Columbus's time belonged to the Crown of Aragon. So Christopher Columbus had to pretend all his life that he was a Roman Catholic Christian. If he had made one mistake, this man would have ended up on the pyre, said Al-Bardana. The explorer who navigated the Americas under the Spanish flag is often referred to as a person who, let's say, discovered of America a theory which has been debunked. I continue the article. The same year that Columbus landed on Guanahani in the Bahamas, sorry, my English was never the best in the world pronouncing things, in 1492, Spain ordered the expulsion of Jews who did not convert to Christianity. This was in the year 1492. Famous story about Rav Abarbanel, Don Isaac Abarbanel, which we'll go on to in a minute. The country's Catholic monarchs, Queen Isabella I of Castile and King Ferdinand II of Aragon, ordered the expulsion of all Jews who did not convert. The Alhambra decree gave Jews 4 months to leave or become Christian. And Jews were not allowed to take money with them, and those who did not leave or who returned were executed. We can see the terrible anti-Semitism at that stage in time, but very, very staggering this news over here. And what's interesting, I'm just looking at the Chabad website also about Christopher Columbus. There's an excellent article over here, which was written by, I think, Rabbi Yosef Eisen, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know the exact date when he actually wrote it. He actually explores the decree of the expulsion of the Jewish people of Spain. I'm not going to go into the whole article in of itself, but I'll quote the paragraph he mentions Christopher Columbus. He states over here inside this article, historians estimate that anywhere from 100,000 to 300,000 Jews departed. The last Jews left Spain, it was on Thursday, August the 2nd, 1492. So that was apparently the recorded date. That naturally happens to be Tisha B'Av. We know, I think the expulsion of Jews from England also occurred on that date, if I'm not mistaken also. Tisha B'Av being in the 9th of Av, being one of the two 24, 25-hour fast days in the Jewish calendar. Christopher Columbus, now he's quoting Columbus here. Now he says in brackets over here, who may have been a descendant of Conversus, was supposed to leave for America that day, but could not because the harbour was full of fleeing Jews. Undaunted, he departed the next day, eventually discovering a continent that would prove hospitable for Jews in the future. Clearly, even when striking the Jewish people, God lays the foundation for future salvation. Now, he talks about much more within regards to articles, excellent article also in the Chabad website over here. But just to illustrate the anti-Semitism at that point in time, just to leave on, it was a very, very sour note. We hope these things won't happen again. The greatest rabbi, arguably across the world at that point in time, was Rabbi Don Isaac Abarbanel, who I'm sure most of us would know of. He departed Spain at the end, despite assurances from the monarchy that he had permission to stay without converting to Christianity. He left behind nearly his entire fortune and settled in Italy, where he died in 1508. So I think he himself would have went on to live another 16 years and passed away in the year 1508. But very, very interesting article. And to just discover that there's a very good chance he's Jewish, or according to this research over here, it shows the probability was quite high. It's very, very interesting news. And very, very historic over here. So it's in all the UK tabloid paper, all the UK papers in of itself there, especially in the Jewish Chronicle. There's a feature here in Sunday Telegraph and all the other news. Wishing you all a Chag Sameach in advance. And let's just see blessings all over the world. So wishing you a great day and take care.